Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me one quick favor, see that little black subscribe button on the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, hit that little black subscribe button. Really does help this channel grow, my audience grow, and I appreciate it more than you know. Also, quick thank you to our presenting sponsor, Betfred Sportsbook and the Betfred Sportsbook app. Bet $50 on any game. Get up to $1,111 in free bets courtesy of the Betfred Sportsbook. Thank you again. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Then I think I'll just kind of give a quick thought on some of the other ones. If you want extended content, you can go to the College Football Betting YouTube channel. We'll have plenty of previews up there throughout the week. But let's get back into it. Let's start with a very interesting game in Lubbock, Texas. Oregon. The Oregon Ducks going to Texas Tech. Weird scheduling thing. Oregon is a 6.5-point favorite. The over-under is set at 69. And you talk about two teams that just had completely different experiences in week one. Doesn't get much more different than these two schools. Oregon, it was a heck of a week one. Did you see the final score of when they played Portland State? 81-7 was the final score. 81-7. The final score. That doesn't even seem real, yet it was. And it was just, listen, it was one of those, everything that could go right did. Bo Nix, 23 of 27 passing, 3 touchdowns. Bucky Irving, 100-plus rushing yards on just 4 carries, multiple 100-yard receivers. And then on the defensive side, a group that struggled last year holds Portland State under 200 yards. I think it was actually exactly 200 yards. So a great effort from Oregon. And then there's Texas Tech. Texas Tech plays a true road game at Wyoming, and they end up losing 35-33 in double overtime. And before we get to this game itself, let me just say this. Listen, I am all for Power Fives going to play Group of Fives. I'm a UConn alum. UConn just hosted NC State last week. They're hosting Duke in a couple weeks. I bring it up because I don't know why any school ever schedules these games, okay? And I know that these games are scheduled years in advance. I believe the Wyoming-Texas Tech series was scheduled in like 2013. This game was actually supposed to be played in 2020. Obviously, COVID canceled it. But you just have nothing to gain if you're Texas Tech going into the mountains at altitude, the best crowd that Wyoming's probably going to have all year. I don't get it. But what I would also say as it pertains to this game, I think it's a dangerous, dangerous, dangerous spot for Oregon. Listen, from the Oregon perspective coming into this one, that offense was great. That defense was great. But let's call a spade a spade. You not only played an FCS team last week, credit to you for beating the FCS team the way you want to, but they're not even a good FCS team. Portland State 4-7 last year. And so we know that Oregon offense is good. But first of all, first game without Kenny Dillingham, they looked good. We'll see what happens when you're on the road in a raucous environment in Lubbock. But 2, I don't really know if your defense, which wasn't very good last year, is improved. Remember, this was a team that Oregon, 74th nationally in points allowed, 70th nationally in 300 with 381 yards per game allowed, and 101st nationally in pass defense. By the way, you're going up against one of the best pass offenses in college football a year ago. And then I look at the Texas Tech perspective, and it's actually the exact opposite. Yes, you lost to Wyoming, but a couple things stood out. One, as I said, everything that could go wrong did. You're playing at altitude. You have 7 penalties, some of them costly at the worst possible time. There's a weird weather delay that extends this one super late. It's a weird thing. It's a weird deal, whatever. But I also thought there were some positives. For a Texas Tech defense that was not good last year, 107th nationally in total defense, 102nd nationally in pass defense, they actually looked pretty good. They outgained Wyoming on offense by over 100 yards. They held Wyoming to just 320 yards in the game, 149 yards passing. And so for a team that's looking for positives on defense, you got them. And then the offense was really good despite the final score not reflecting it. 431 yards of total offense, and that pass offense was elite again. 338 yards passing, 31 of 47. And so that's where it gets interesting. That elite Texas Tech pass offense going up against a very questionable Oregon pass defense. Now, from the Oregon perspective, the positive of it is Oregon really did do a great job of fortifying that defense in the offseason. Credit where it's due. I think Dan Lanning is doing as good a job as anybody in this portal era. combination of a really good recruiting class with really good portal guys. You add Jordan Birch from South Carolina up front. You add Tysheem Johnson, a corner from Ole Miss. You add Kyrie Jackson, a corner from Alabama. You add Evan Williams, a safety from Fresno. And then, oh, by the way, you also added a 5-star up front in Mateo Uiagalelei, the brother of DJ. So I'm curious to see how this Oregon defense responds. But I'll tell you, from a win-loss, who wins, what's the bet perspective, this one's a stay away to me. Sometimes on this show, I do this. I will not give you a pick if I do not have one. If I would not put my own money on this game, I will not give you one. And I can't put my money on this one because you look at this game. Oregon, I just mentioned Texas Tech going to Wyoming. Oregon, this just doesn't feel like you have a lot to gain. You have to go to Lubbock, tough place to get to, really tough place to play. Texas lost there last year. A bunch of Oklahoma lost there last year as well. You're playing a Texas Tech team that, oh, by the way, is pretty good, is talented, can score the football. And also, two other things really stand out about this game. One, the 6.5 hasn't moved. Doesn't it just feel like Vegas wants you to take Oregon? Oh, it's just not even all they got to do is win by a touchdown. You'll be good. You'll be fine. Sorry, that scares me a little bit. And two, I'll also say this. I'm a fan of college football, have been for a while. I know you guys and girls are too. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening to this show. Doesn't this just feel like the kind of game Oregon's going to lose? Like, can't we just see how the Oregon season is going to unfold? Oregon's going to lose this game. Everyone's going to write them off. Then they're going to go undefeated the rest of September, undefeated October. They'll be 8-1 going into November, and then they'll take a bad loss at the worst possible time. So listen, can Oregon win this game? I mean, they put up 81 points last week. Of course they can win this game. But you look at the matchup specifically, the Texas Tech pass offense, that's their strength against a rebuilt Oregon secondary. And you look at the crowd, you look at the environment, you look at the line. Total stay away to me. By the way, the over of 69 is just way too many for me in this advanced, move the clock era. Total